What's up, gamers, and welcome back for more WotC-20. Today's matchup should be a fun one. It's Wigglytuff Do the Wave versus Wildfire Mill, which is a Moltres deck, so a little fire action for us. Opening actives will be Tyrogue versus Cleffa. Tyrogue, pretty good Cleffa counter if you're feeling good about flipping two heads. And on bench, looks like a Chansey, so haven't seen either of these decks before, should be interesting. Looks like the Recycle Energy is going to come down onto active for Tyrogue, so Wigglytuff gets the draw here. And it looks like they're going to go straight for a Smash Punch. So first they roll for the Baby Roll on Cleffa. Looks like they're going to do a re-roll though. And looks like they're going to have to re-roll again, so first roll is a heads, that goes through Baby Roll. Second for actual Smash Punch is a tails. 3 is odd. So we'll pass over to Wildfire. Fire attached to active on Cleffa. Still going to have to flip to eke through the Baby Roll of Tyrogue itself. Now let's see what's in hand there. I do see an ER, so that was being considered for the Recycle Energy just now. Wouldn't do much. Looks like it will be an eke attempt, nothing else coming out of hand, and that is a tails as well. So Tyrogue, keep in mind, can hit Chansey for super effective damage and two-shot it. And looks like there is an energy removal as well on Wigglytuff's side. Alright, and the double heads for Smash Punch happens this time. Sabrina's Abra comes down onto the bench with Energy Loop for 20, if you're unfamiliar with it. So Chansey comes active, DCE here. You're going to have to think about how to avoid donk territories. And an Oak will come down discarding 2 Fire Energy. Not sure what the E-Reader Fire Pokemon there is. And an Energy Removal. So if you're going to pitch the Energy Removal, you might as well slam it down and force the reattach of Recycle, even though it's not the best at countering that card. But still, no worries. Some bench filling comes in here. Cleffa comes down. Magmar comes down. Good stall card in Magmar. And it looks like Chansey's Scrunch is a tails for the Baby Roll. So you can see in hand here there's an energy removal for Tough as well as a Double Gust. Looks like a Darkness Energy, couldn't quite tell there. And it was a tails on Smash Punch for what would have been 60. Lickitung comes down, also notably fighting weak. Mind the glare there. I'll have to keep an eye on Lickitung, which now has a DCE on it. I think it was a DCE. Scrunch attempt again. That's a heads. Gotta roll again though. And it's a heads again. So Chansey is now protected from Smash Punch. But Double Gust can kind of solve that here. See an Oak in hand as well for Tough. There's a Tough in hand. No Jigglypuff seen yet. And that is not a Darkness Energy, that is a Metal Energy. So big grips for Wigglytuff's side here. Looks like they will just pass. So very slow start for an otherwise fast deck. You can see another Oak in hand, but instead DCE will get discarded to retreat that Chansey and put a Cleffa in. You can see a Pokemon Center, a Quilava, so that E-Reader card before must have been Typhlosion, I'll assume. DCE to Cleffa, doesn't always feel great, and it doesn't hit through the Baby Roll on Tyrogue, so we might see another Smash Punch land here. And Lickitung won't do much better in front of Smash Punch than Chansey. Alright, that's a heads again, and for Smash Punch is a tails. Ooh, an Erica in hand.
I may draw 3 cards, your opponent may draw 3 cards.
When getting milled, figuring out if you take 3 off Erica can be risky. Looks like both sides will take the 3. Fun card if you can chain them together if you run multiple copies. Fire Energy comes down onto Magmar. And another Eek attempt here, which would waste the Erica, but it's a tails anyway. And a Brock's Zubat coming down, so Or I'm sorry, not Brock Zubat, KogaZubat coming down.
Round one. Yep.
Smash Punch again is heads on the baby rule. Oh, no. Looks like that's a 5. Nope, that's a 4.
Oh, wow, that's a very close to looking like 2 5s on that.
And a Tails again.
Don't worry, we're both failing this one.
Another Cleffa into the hand for Wildfire. Now worth noting with KogaZubat, group attack does 10 damage times the number of KogaZubats in play, but before damage you can search your deck for any number of KogaZubats and bench them. So a good way to power up Do the Wave. Makes you run Grass Energy. It has one Grass attach already, but it is a 2-pip attack, so a colorless will also be needed to get that off. Good way to thin deck as well. Huge hand here. Looks like we're going to bring KogaZubat active, attach another Grass. And there's a Focus Band in hand, a Shaman, all sorts of things. Shaman wouldn't be bad for putting some cards back if you are worried about getting milled out. Looks like that's a Tails. Looks like they're going to be re-rolling for any interference with piles, though. It's a Tails anyway, so no more KogaZubats will be joining the field. Cleffa stays alive. Only 2 would have been needed to pull out to knock out the Cleffa, and that would still leave a slot for a Jigglypuff to come down. Instead, we see a Cyndaquil from Neo Genesis. And some good stall cards on the bench right now for Wildfire, but hard to say. You could have gotten a free Eek off of that Zubat. Trying to figure out who to retreat into. Looks like it will be the Magmar. So if you're not familiar with Magmar, 70 HP, pretty big on a basic. It is from Fossil as well. So Smokescreen is going to deal 10 for 1 fire energy. And then if that Zubat tries to attack during the next turn, the opponent has to flip a coin. If Tails, the attack does nothing. However, you can just free retreat out of that right now. You can free retreat from... All the cards right now for Wigglytuff are free retreat on board, so you can free retreat from Zubat into either Tyrogue or Abra, remove Smokescreen, and get your attack off. So, worth noting there is a workaround for it. I believe we'll see Quilava come down next turn, trying to figure out how Wildfire can get an engine going. We haven't seen Moltres yet either, but that's not unusual. It does have a retreat cost of 2, so it can be pretty big gust bait.
It's just this specific kind of Pokemon, so you can retreat and bring it back.
A lot of cards clutched up, really struggling to find Jigglypuff. That early prize seems like a long time ago now. So Tyrogue comes in, Smokescreen has been removed, and instead is going to Smash Punch, hit the heads, and deal 30 to Magmar. Which does set up a KO with Zubat if Magmar decides to stay in, and Zubat can come in and group attack, assuming all of the remaining Zubats are in deck. Quilava comes down, also from Neo Genesis. And let's see what's in hand. Looks like there's a Fisherman in hand, 2 Pokemon Centers. Do both sides have a Focus Band in hand right now? I know Tuff does. No, that's a Cleffa, not a Focus Band. For Wildfire, at least. No attach for turn, just a Smokescreen attempt. It's a Tails on the baby roll. Tyrogue putting in a lot of work here. Now, you might not even need Tuff at this point to get rolling. You can just start swinging for 40 with the Zubats. Wildfire does seem stalled on pips. And it will be the group attack. So that's 1 Zubat. Good deck peep here. You can see all sorts of things. There's at least one Jigglypuff that can't be found. And all the Zubats come out. None are prized. That'll deal 40. That is a perfect knockout on that Magmar. Worth noting that Lickitung is not the worst thing to put up front, although you could just get a free Eek. And it looks like Cleffa will come in. Usually the right choice anyway because it's a free retreater if you're not sure who you want to put in. And then there's another Chansey in hand, a computer search. Gotta go get something good. It might be Typhlosion. You can see another Quilava. Discards a Chansey. And another Cleffa. Considering one Cleffa is knocked out, that is now 2 Cleffa in bin with 1 active. You can get the Eek off, but then you might not be able to Eek very easily for the rest of the game if things go downhill. And depending on where that last Cleffa is. Something that's very difficult about playing a mill deck is you're usually playing the whole game without getting any prizes. You can try to take some prizes, but if you're going to take prizes, you might find it's easier to win the game by just attacking.
This is going to be a very interesting matchup.
And instead, looks like Moltres was pulled out with that computer search. And hits the bench. Fisherman as supportive return. Okay, so 3 fire was grabbed from the bin, attached return to Moltres. And into an Eek. So, now that Moltres is on board, it only has 70 HP. It does resist fighting, so Tyrogue can't grief it, but Zubat can take care of it in 2 turns here. Wildfire lets you discard any number of fire energy attached to Moltres when you use the attack, and if you do, you mill that many off of the top of the opponent's deck. Tuff is going to attach a grass energy to Zubat, and we haven't seen any Tuff, so I might as well just start calling this the Zubat deck. And there is a second attack from Moltres. It's Dive Bomb for 4 fire energy. It does 80 damage, but you gotta hit heads in order to do any damage. So, usually not what you're trying to do with Moltres. Another Erica in the hand, and you can see a Gust, which would be good for stalling if everything wasn't free retreat on the other side of the board. Fire energy number 2 comes down on the Moltres for turn, and now a Scyther, Jungle Scyther, comes down onto the bench to fill it out for Wildfire. It's a free retreater with a big body, not a bad option. Erica here, getting 3 into the hands. Tuff will do the same, not going to pass up on any of the draw. And you can see there's Imposter Oak in hand. That's a fun card if you're trying to finish the game off via mill. If you're not familiar with Imposter Oak, okay, Cleffa's going to retreat instead, bring in Lickitung. Looks like we're going to see some stalling here. Will there be paralysis? No. It did do 10, though, to Zubat, which is at 20 out of 40 for knockout. Anyway, Imposter Oak, your opponent shuffles their hand into their deck and then draws 7. So if they have a very small hand, that can kind of force them to draw more cards than they might want to as you mill them. Usually it's a finisher kind of move, not something you would do mid-game. As long as Cleffa's around, there are ways to tuck cards back into the deck. And it looks like Tyrogue is going to come back inactive, looking for some super effective opportunities here. That's a heads, that's 60 to Lickitung. Bulky 90 HP though, it's going to take 30 to knock it out, but Zubat can do that or Tyrogue can do that. There is a scoop up in hand, but you probably don't want to discard that DCE. Although Prize Denial is going to be strong here, and we will see the scoop up, so that takes the damage off the board. Discards the DCE, puts the Lickitung back into hand, and will promote something for free. And it will be Cleffa. One of the more shining matches we've seen for Tyrogue here. Another DCE from hand comes down onto Chansey. But that's attached for turn, so 2 fire energy in hand, not really able to get Moltres powered up here. And it looks like we're going to Eek, but it's a Tails. That baby rule is doing work this game. Huge hand for Tuff. Oh my god, is that like a 15 card hand or something? That's why you run Copycat, I guess. Zubat coming in on a knockout attempt for Cleffa. And it is a heads, so group attack dealing 40. That is another prize for Tuff into a massive hand that is probably the same size as the deck at this point. Prizing is 3 to 6. Chansey comes active. Fire attach return to Moltres, so now Wildfire would be up to 3 here. At this point you might be desperate enough just based on the energy on board to start dive bombing. Of course, that many cards in hand, you assume that any benched KogaZubat would have one more attach coming onto it easily. Another Cleffa comes down, that's the 4th Cleffa, so Wildfire is still going to be able to eke if wanted. Scrunches of Tails, these are some brutal flips. That's a lot of cards. Too tough. I wonder where all the Jigglypuffs are. Could always comp search for one, but you got a full bench, doesn't really matter. You're doing fine work with Zubat. You can come in with Tyro here because Scrunch failed. Although doing 60 versus 40, considering the 40 is guaranteed and the 60 is on flip, maybe 40 is okay. It's a Tails anyway. 2-shotting versus 3-shotting is a big deal, but in this matchup, the way things are going, I think it's fine. 4 fire energy now on Moltres, worth noting.
I'll attempt to first attack.
Attack attempts, and it's a Tails. I assume that was first Scrunch. Pass back to Tuff. There's a Tuff, but no Puff. No Focus Band attaches. This is not sure where that die went. Looks like it was a heads. Smash Punch, super effective. 60 to Chansey. Now you got to figure out what you're going to do with Chansey. Do you let it get knocked out? Do you keep trying to flip these Scrunches? ER will hit KogaZubat. So now every KogaZubat except one has a single grass attach. Debating throwing down Pokemon Center here just to heal that Chansey. Retreating is probably just as good. I would think you'd want to save those centers as you spread damage around, throw up Scyther, retreat to Lickitung, stall a little there. But Moltres is going to just come in with a 5th Fire Energy attach for turn. Let's see. There is a Gust. You might want to get around the baby rule here. But as we talked about before, all free retreaters doesn't keep things around for long. Of course, Moltres resisting fighting does mean Tyro can't touch it. So Wildfire for 5. Let's see what we hit here. Could be Jigglypuffs. 1 Recycle Energy, 1 Jigglypuff, a Psychic, Sabrina Zabra, and a Grass Energy. So 3 energy. Recycle doesn't go to hand either. That's pretty good. And 1 Jigglypuff knocked into the bin. Not half bad if you can keep these Zubats in check. And looks like Zubat will come in. You have to assume there's an energy in hand there. It was a good ER attempt, and Wildfire getting off was good, but it takes a lot of energy off the board. And that marks 40 on Moltres. 70 HP total for it. ER to Grass. Gonna try to energy stall here, but that's a big hand. And there's 2 comp searches. You know you can go get an energy with that. The question is, how many grass energy does Tuff realistically run? You know, there's some Psychic in there for Abra. Might not have a lot of grass to go around. Pokemon Center comes down, no energy discarded, it just heals off the Moltres. And Imposter Oak comes in. Now usually you'll see that as a finishing move. You'll want the opponent to draw off of it, but in this case it's turning their hand into half the size, maybe even less than half the size it was. And an Oak from Moltres as well. Puts a Gust in the bin, not a big deal though. Nothing effective to really Gust in here. Draws into another Gust though, that's funny. You see a Town V, a Scyther also, although there's already one benched. Fire for turn on Moltres. I wonder if we're just going to start milling, although... And a Fisherman as supporter for turn, putting 4 fire back in the hand. Of course, that Imposter Oak's Revenge just made your milling job a lot more difficult. Put so many cards back in the deck. And still no Typhlosion to be found. Wildfire for 1, what do we hit? It's an ER, that's not going to do much. Comp Search off the top. And that Comp Search is going to come down, pitching a Cleffa and a Tyrogue. Definitely not needed here. And what can they find? Are they going to find a Grass Energy? Going to preserve some tough lines? There's a Psychic Energy, a Cyclone. There's a Grass. You don't even necessarily need a Grass, though. Just retreat into one of the other Zubats. Pop a Recycle or Cyclone onto it. You'll be fine. Alright, Comp Search for Grass. And that will bring in a different Zubat. So now it's double Grass onto one Zubat. Makes sense, it's resilient enough. Marks 40 again on Moltres. Prizing is still 3-6, keeping in mind that it's kind of difficult to take prizes as a mill deck. There's another Magmar in hand. They're thinking about Town V, it looks like. Ideally, there is a way to start stalling against these Zubats, putting a Lickitung back up front, but you don't want Tyrogue coming in either, so that's a bit of a dilemma, and it looks like there will be some Town V action. See that E-Reader thrown over? That is... looks like Super Singed Typhlosion from what I can tell. Let's see if I'm right here. Yep. It is the Heat Up Typhlosion from Expedition. Saw the 2-fire DCE attack. So we'll see if that Quilava can evolve. Then we'll talk about Heat Up if needed. We'll see how close to set up this engine gets. And another fire attached to Moltres. If it wildfires, it'll definitely get knocked out. Wildfire for 1, hits a double Gust. Not bad at all. At this point, I have to imagine that Moltres has a smaller deck pile than Tough. Alright, Cleffa's going to Eek. Not sure what's being looked for in there. Probably the Typhlosion, let's be honest. Although having multiple Typhlosions set up would definitely be preferable. Not sure how thick of a line they run. It's 2-2-2 or what. It's kind of how it feels based on how the match has been going. And it looks like that was also a heads for group attack on Cleffa, which should... once all this resolves, I think that was a roll for Cleffa. Okay, and it looks like it will be a fold, so Moltres will scoop. And that was a decisive win. Oh, look at that prizing. Okay, that's why it felt like a 2-2-2 line on the engine. So, that's what happens. Hard to play when you can't take prizes, so good game all around. Fun decks. Thanks for watching.